mai ko te wā tapu nui o tāne nui a rangi e tau mai nei ki te kōhanga nui o tuputo e pōhiri nei a koutou e whakapiri mai, whakatata mai, haere mai rā. Tangihia ngā mate o te wā, kia mihia, kia tangihia, kia poroporo a ki tahi tātou i runga i te kaupapa te rānei e. Haere atura, haere atura, haere atura.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. He hi ake ana te a tākura, he tio, he huka, he hauhuti, he wa mauri ora. Wa tihai wa mauri ora. Tihai uri uri, tihai nako nako, ka tau ha whakatau ko te rangi e tūnei, ka tau ha whakatau ko te papa e takoto nei. Ka tau ha whakatau te mātuku mai i rarotonga. Ko ia i rukuhia manawa paurata, ko ia i rukuhia manawa paua hoki a tina, whakatina te more i Hawaiki. Ka pupu ana e wawau ana ki a whakatara watu ki te rangi. Hekeke panuku, hekeke horo, whana, hara mai te toki o haumi ei. Hui ei, tai ei. Wahea te tohua te ringa, he aroha weia ha ha. Watu hana tiara, ki te hana maura. Wa piki ko tuku, ha piki a hurua ha ha. Wa he manu tawhi o rangi, he karanga mai nei, piki mai, kake mai, haere mai. Whakati ake a te manuhiri tū a rangi koutou, kua tatu mai nei ki runga i te kaupapa te rā. Tēnei te reo whakatau, tēnei te reo pōhiri o tuputo a piki mai, kake mai, haere mai rā. Haere mai rā e ngā ihi, e ngā wehi, e ngā tapu, o runga i te matu, o runga i te ao. Koutou kua tatu mai nei ki te kaupapa te rā, tēnei te reo mihi, tēnei te reo mai o haka i a koutou katoa. Whakati ake, mauria mai rā o koutou mate, ngā itu wā o te tau, o te marama, o te wiki, o te rānei, kia tūhono ki e rao ngā mate kei runga i a mātou, kia tangihia tahi tātou runga i tā tātou kaupapa i te rā. O koutou e te hunga wairua, koutou kua rūpeke atu, kia nunui mā, kia roro a mā, tā iwi o te pō, e moi, whakangaro atu rā. Koutou o te pō, tātou o a pōpō, tihai wa mauri ora, tihai wa mauri ora ki te whai au, ki te ao marama. E te iwi nui tonu, koutou ko whai nei ki uta nungai te kaupapa tuku toa tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā kārangarangatanga maha o te ao, huri noa tō tātou marae te rānei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora hui hui mai anō tātou katoa e tau ana. Karanga wai a tā whānau e. Unuia te rito te hara ki te teia te komako e ko whakapai rangi tia rere ki uta rere ki tai ngau e ki mai e aha te ngā nui mātu e ki atu e tangata e tongoto e tangata.
Kanuku nuku kaneke neke, kanuku nuku kaneke neke, titiro ki ngā waio e te mata e horane, kitua mehe pipi wharauro, takoto te pai, takoto te pai. Kei aku manuhiri, tuarangi, ko tatu mai nei runga te karanga o tēnei rā, mai ngā kōkana o te motu nei, mai te ao huri huri, nau mai, haere mai, piki mai, kake mai, ki Wainganui o tātou, a te whānau o Tuputoa. A o tira, tēnei te mihi ki ngā kamupene, ki ngā Pākihi, puto no te motu, puto no te ao, kua piri nei ki tō tātou nei kaupapa o Tuputoa. Mei kore ake ko koutou, mei kore ake e pua waitia tō tātou nei kaupapa o Tuputoa, no reira tēnei kāmihi ka tika. Kia ora everyone, ko tōku ingoa ko Talalelei Rewati. Kia ora everyone, my name's Talalelei Rewati, and it's my honour and privilege to be one of your MCs for today. Welcome to our first virtual new partner welcome. It's something new for us, and here at Tuputoa we just love adapting to the situations that are happening in the world at the moment. But I just want to give a couple special mentions to some companies out there that were going to host us if the lockdowns were going to let us do that. So first of all, I just want to mention Becca, who are going to host us in Auckland for our new partner welcome. Also to ANZ, who are going to host us in Pōneke, Wellington. And also we have two others, Accenture and Nifa Creatives, for our wonderful virtual pōwhiri that you just seen a couple of minutes ago. So this is just a warm mihi to everyone this morning. Nau mai, haere mai, whakatau mai rā.
Malola lei everyone, ko hoku hingoa ko Florida Whaliaki, lele mai me mauwhanga mo whasimoiaki tonga tapu. Kia ora everyone, warm greetings and thank you for joining us this morning. Welcome to our new partner welcome for 2021. Our new partner welcome is our way of acknowledging the promise and commitment that you've all made to this kaupapa, and ensuring that you feel welcomed and supported as you embark on this incredible journey with us today. I'd like to quickly share a Tongan proverb with you all, which is "Tā kanga e nā whohe," which this proverb relates to the rowing of the kalia, which is a Tongan canoe, and encourages the rowers to row at the same time so that it drives the kalia in the direction that they are aiming for. When the speed and the timing of the rowing are in sync, this will make the kalia sail faster. and the Kalia will stand out in performance. So this is the heart of the proverb, strength in unity. We won't be able to make changes overnight. However, with your commitment to join this Tuputoa Waka, alongside the support of the team here at Tuputoa, we can achieve greatness together so that your organizations and our tauira here in Aotearoa will thrive. So once again, you know, this is the start of a beautiful partnership. And so we thank you for supporting this kaupapa and being with us here this morning. I'll pass it now back to Tala just to close off our formalities for this morning. And then we'll get back into the swing of things. Malo Albito.
Kia ora whānau. Just to finish off our formalities for this part of our welcome, we're going to go into a thing called kaputi. This is my favorite part because we get to consume either food or cup of tea, coffee, whatever that may be. So for this next 2 to 3 minutes, I encourage you to go out there and get some food, because in our Māori world, to finish off this traditional welcome, to get ourselves out of this state called tapu, or for this context, we'll call it sacred. We need a whakanoa to come back into commonality to this real world. So by doing that and consuming food, that brings us back into the world of commonality. So for these next 2 or 3 minutes, go off and get a cup of tea or something to eat. But before that, I'm just going to say a quick karakia, and we can do that all together. Me noi tātou, e pā whakapainei nei kai, hei oranga mo mātai tinana, whangai hoki o mātou wairua ki te tara o te ora. Ko hikurai ti tō mātou kaiwhakaora. Āmine. We'll see you in 2 to 3 minutes. Ka kite.
Traveling now. Me I know you have a broken heart. Me don't have no solution. But me what me tell you about one more thing. That the Cherokee boys me have to tell you. Support the material me I tell you right now. There is a better place. Now you're all alone, wondering what went wrong. Girl, don't lose control. Head up and be strong. Let the reasoning become history, and it will eventually pass on. So don't let them tell you you're not worth it no more. When all is done, there'll be a knock at your door. Open up.
Can you hear me?
Before you stop, oh better place, better time, better world, better life. Said there's a better place for you to be.
Don't let him tell you you're not worth it no more. When all is done, there'll be a knock at your door. Open up and you will see there's a better place to be. Girl, that past you gotta leave behind.
Ai kia ora tātou katoa, nau mai hoki mai. Ki tō tātou nei wānanga I te ata nei. Welcome back everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed some homemade baking, or for you Aucklanders, rushed off to the bakery to get a steak and cheese pie or something like that. So nau mai hoki mai. It's my honor and privilege to introduce our next speaker. This person holds a lot of mana to me. She influences a lot of people throughout her life. She brings emerging leaders along the journey with her. And she has a passion for her people and all people of Aotearoa. So it's my honor and privilege to introduce our CEO and Whiti Samana.
Kia ora. Thank you, Tala. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā tai o whā o te motu nei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. In celebration of Tuvalu Language Week, tā alofa. I'm delighted to welcome you all as new partners here today, and to welcome too those of you we are so proud to already be working with as partners. Tuputoa is very deliberate in the use of the word partner. To us, as Māori and Pacifica people, it is the beginning of what is often a lifelong relationship, if not in practice, at least in memory. For us, partnership is never a short-term transactional relationship. It is complex and multidimensional. As varied as our cultures are across Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, the Pacific, we hold a fundamental trait in common, and that is we live, we breathe, contributing to the collective, to the greater whole, to our immediate, extended, and community whānau, and to all the interconnections across the Pacific and across the world. This way of being is held so very deeply in all of us. We never stop to question whether we are functioning on our own as individuals or as part of a family, a group, a team, or an organisation. To serve the collective is in our DNA. Businesses and government organisations have partnered with us, have found that they have learned and benefited so much more than they had imagined from their partnership and relationship with us. The principles and tikanga we hold dear around caring and serving others first and foremost frequently provide magnificent contributions to the social cohesion, connectivity, and engagement of people across the organisations we partner with. The strong partnerships we form with you set a foundation for two other important elements of our commitment as a nation to the principles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, protection and participation. We encourage and empower all of our participants to bring their whole selves to work and to not leave their identity or their culture at the door. With you as partners, we work to uplift, to support, to establish environments that protect the key elements of Te Ao Māori, the world of Māori, including te reo, language, and tikanga. Likewise, this extends to Pasifika and other cultures, and furthermore, to protect those of gender, diversity, and ability. The third P, participation, equates to our commitment to inclusion, which goes above and beyond diversity as a measurement. In Aotearoa, we are starting to see positive shifts in the statistics around diversity, but there is still a long way to go, particularly at senior levels of business and government. Inclusion is around ensuring there is a voice for people from diverse backgrounds and that this voice is heard, recognised, understood, and influences both culture and the goals of an organisation. Increasingly, research is showing us that the inclusion of diverse perspectives not only enriches the work environment, it impacts upon productivity, profitability, and innovation. Not to mention, it makes everybody feel valued. Working in silos is alien to us at Tuputoa. We work with relationships with people wherever they sit in the hierarchy. We weave connections and contributions for a greater good, for a common goal, for a greater Aotearoa. This is at the heart of Māori and Pacific leadership. The Māori kupuwho, or word for leadership, is rangatira. It also means to weave. So we weave leadership amongst ourselves and others to have a family, a team, a culture, an organisation thrive as a whole. Tuputoa started working with just one thread of an opportunity 5 years ago, internships. But we immediately saw that to serve our young people and organisations like you all here today, we needed to weave a number of other streams into our offering. That is why we think holistically, and we have grown to now offer multiple pathways: internships, cadetships, hiko digital skills, early career leadership development program, talent platform, graduate program, and most recently a rangatahi pilot program for those coming through to tertiary and employment. In this time when the world has been turned on its head with the pandemic and climate change challenges, we, in partnership with you, can be a catalyst for change. But we all need now to do more than ever before is build resilience together. As Māori and Pasifika, we have known the experience of being the other, of being the minority. And as we rise above this disadvantage, we emerge as champions of resilience, of innovation and adaptability. These qualities are critical for this time. The good news is that you'll find these qualities in all of our rangatahi, our interns, our graduates, and our young professionals. They are all adept at navigating different worlds, the worlds of business, the world of government, and the worlds of their cultures. They are now our future. Your support and your partnership with us indeed is changing the world. So welcome to this opportunity to partner with Tuputoa, to have us walk alongside you, to guide you, to gently push and encourage you. Welcome to what I'm sure will be a lasting and memorable relationship for you all personally and your organisations. In closing, I share a favourite whakatauki. E aha te mea nui o te ao. What is the most important thing in the world? He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It is people, it is people, it is people. Okay, so I think we're now moving on to welcoming our new partners onto our amazing waka this year. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Countdown as our newest principal partner. Countdown joins the team of 10, so we now have 10 principal partners sitting across Tuputoa, and I'd just like to mention them: Foodstuffs, Datacom, Accenture, Corrections, Auckland Council, Air New Zealand, Fletchers and Suncorp. Joining us in the category of major and support partners, we have the following: Becca, O'Connell Dowell, the Warehouse Group, Naylor Love, Dentsu, Financial Markets Authority, Public Trust, HRL and Morrison, South Base Construction, Ministry of Health, Tonkin and Taylor, Publicis Group. Welcome. At Scholarship and Community, okay, oops, sorry.
Maloa, Vito, and welcome once again to all those new partners. I now welcome a dear friend of Tuputoa to facilitate the next part of our program, Zaina Jalil. Zaina is an award-winning business and public sector leader focused on deepening New Zealand's engagement with Asia Pacific and improving outcomes for those with diverse cultures, abilities, and experiences. Recognized by Campaign Asia Pacific as part of its 2020 Women to Watch, a group of 40 outstanding women in the Asia Pacific, Zaina has received several international awards for her work promoting New Zealand trade, investment, and education in Asia, and advises businesses looking to grow in the region. Her previous roles include Regional Director of South and Southeast Asia for Education New Zealand, New Zealand Trade Commissioner to Singapore, and Head of North Asia Marketing and Communications for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. Zaina is also a member of the New Zealand Institute of Directors in Global Women. What a woman. Thank you for joining us, Zaina. The floor is all yours. Malo apito.
Kia ora, Florida. Thank you so much for that very generous introduction. E te whānau, kia ora, talofa, nisambula vinaka. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you all today. My own journey with Tuputoa started about 3 years ago. I came to help Anne with one initiative. And as many of you will know, when you connect with Anne and Tuputoa, one thing becomes two and then four, and then you never leave. In that time, I have had the immense joy of seeing Tuputoa grow in so many ways, you know, its own team, with you all, the partners, interns, and its offer. And that is what we are here to talk about today. Internships as catalysts for change. For those of you who've been on this journey from the start, you will know that Tuputoa started as a facilitator of internships for Māori and Pacific tertiary students. Those internships have been life-changing for our interns and their whānau. And as a result of those internships and partnerships with you, Tuputoa has been able to grow its offer, not only for our Māori and Pacific communities, but also for our partners, as Anne mentioned earlier. We will shortly hear from some Tuputoa alumni and partners as to why this kaupapa is so important. But before that, a little bit of housekeeping. We want to make this as interactive and as useful as possible for you, and we encourage questions for our panelists. So please enter your questions in the Q&A function. So that's right next to the chat feature. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with Zoom these days, and I'll endeavor to get through as many of your questions as we can through the session. So let me start by introducing our panelists to you, beginning with our alumni. Wesley Mawafu is a graduate civil engineer with Arup. He hails from Christchurch, but got locked down in Auckland well before COVID-19. Wesley was a Tuputoa intern in the 2018-2019 cohort. He interned with Arup, and that has led to his graduate role, and he's with them now. Our other alumni joining us today is Edmund Carrican. He was raised in Hauraki, and I will let him tell you himself his views on the best iwi in Aotearoa. Edmund was also a 2018-19 intern with Te Ara Pautama, the Department of Corrections. He then joined Meredith Connell as a Crown Prosecutor and is now undertaking a full-time Master of Laws at Waikato University. A very warm welcome to you both. And from our partners, we have Rachel Honey, who is the Internal Communications Manager at Suncorp New Zealand. Rachel grew up largely in small remote communities in New Zealand and on a tiny South Pacific island. Rachel has worked in sales, events, marketing, and external and internal communications roles in LA, London, Sydney, and now Auckland. Anthony Hall is Head of People Experience at Auckland Transport. He grew up in South Auckland and has had over 20 years experience in human resources, working for some of New Zealand's most recognizable companies, such as Spark, TVNZ, and Air New Zealand. Welcome to you all. We are thrilled to have you with us. So first up to our panel, can I ask you, Wesley and then Edmund maybe, to share with us what the Tuputoa internship meant for you?
Yeah, whawhitai mo le awa noa. Malo le soifua maua, maralangi e mama. Tālofo ia autou uso ma tua whawhine. A whio mai, susu mai, tala mai a au. O lo ingo o Wesley Mawafu, o lo te mā ma tina e sau mai Samoa. Sa o whanau I Kalaistete ma o te nofo ma whaingaluenga I Aukilangi. E manu e tele le tatou wha moe. Yes, hello, I'm Wesley Mawafu. New Zealand born Samoan, born and bred in Christchurch. It was all said before. And yeah, first off, just want to thank Tuputoa for the opportunity to speak on this panel. I love Tuputoa. I love the work they do. And yeah, it's a real honor and privilege to speak. In terms of the internship, what it meant to me, like it meant everything. I don't necessarily know how much time. Well, no, I'll make it quick. But yeah, long story short, I struggled to get an internship. I applied for heaps of places and got denied left, right, and center. Just automatic email given out to me because my grades weren't necessarily the best. But I don't know, like grades were not necessarily a reflection of my true potential. I mean, they are a reflection of something, but yeah, I knew there was a bit more. And then I got in contact with someone from Tuputoa. I got an internship at Arup through them, very short notice, which was amazing. And then my life changed essentially. It's one thing to go to university and study something, but then to go into the workplace and then have this fear potentially that you might have studied the wrong thing. It was a real thing, and I didn't have that. I went to Arup, and I came in with this idea of what the corporate environment was going to be, and that's not much diversity in both gender, ethnic diversity, or just diversity of thought. And I came into this workplace and they were just diverse in every aspect: ethnic diversity, age diversity, gender diversity, which is surprising in an engineering space, I suppose. And there were actually other Samoan and Māori people in there. Yeah, so on top of that, I didn't get to do like medial work. I got to do work that was like specifically like going towards like big projects in New Zealand, which was amazing. I even got to do some work over in like Australia and around, I don't know, the Asia Pacific area as well, but didn't go there, but like worked remotely. And yeah, got to share my story with the office and also just be myself. I have a lot of other thoughts on the internship. It was amazing, but I would be remiss to miss out the fact that alongside this internship, Tuputoa was amazing, like just giving me a ground to just know who I am, instilling a mission in a lot of the interns of, we are going to be the future, and we are paving the way for our future Māori and Pasifika community to come after us, kind of thing. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully there'll be questions later and I can go into a bit more detail, but yes, sorry if I took too long.
Thank you, Wesley. That was beautiful, actually. So, talking about the internship being everything, and sharing your experience. Thank you for that. Edmund, how about you?
Ka timata hau I runga I te mihi ki a rātou kua whakatau mai te whakatau. Kaihea, te pūa te mate kairunga kairaro, kei te hika hine nui te pō. Nā mai te manu e te raro ana koe, māui tiki ataranga. Kia rātou kua takahi te ara o te ti waiwaka. Kaua kina tura te whare o hine ti tamaki hine nui te pō he mi atu ki maruata reweti te kairuruha o te ata. Aro hoki te mihi ki a ia o tene hopa te manu ti ore o te pai o hine tupari maunga, whakatau mai rā, mihi atu rā. Ko te aroha taia kahumata moi te maunga, ko pia ko te awa, ko Ngāti Hako te iwi. Ai hoki ko Ngāti Porou te iwi pai o te motu. Ngāti Porou is the best iwi in the motu. So yeah, I came to Tuputoa for similar reasons to Wesley. I like to break it down into three things. It was racism, and I think we'll get into that. It was sloppiness on the parts of businesses, and it was also to try something different because I've never been overseas and I sort of don't get around much, so it was good for me to sort of get out of the mighty Waikato and Hauraki down here. So I suppose with racism, it's quite interesting because I wanted to be careful about sharing a story because I'm aware that Minta Ellison is a partner now, I think with Tuputoa. But I can remember when myself and another lady we found ourselves as the only brown people in a room full of about 200 to 300 people at Minta Ellison. And basically when I came to Tuputoa, I wasn't the only brown person in the room anymore. And I didn't have to speak English to everybody. It makes a big difference. And I think a lot of assumptions were being made, like I think they thought her name was Anna, but it was Anna.
And my name's obviously Edmund Kurukin, and it comes off pretty Pākehā. But, you know, obviously you can look at me and I've got tāmoko, and that's obviously I'm not. And with the sloppiness, it was quite interesting because I've shared this before, but I interned with corrections, but I had tried to inquire if corrections actually had an internship, and nobody knew anything, no matter who I asked. And so I was quite surprised when Tuputoa actually placed me in corrections, because I had been told by managers, people that I knew at corrections, that there is no such thing as an internship at corrections, let alone in national office, which is where I got placed. And I think that was quite interesting, because essentially what happened was a door got opened for me that I was told wasn't there. It clearly was there. I spent the whole summer there, but it was just interesting to see, I suppose, miscommunication within, you know, because it's quite a big, you know, business, correction. So that was quite interesting. And in terms of trying something new, I already knew that I was going to be a lawyer. So when I came to Tuputoa, I'd already signed a graduate contract. And so it was just a matter of trying something else, getting a better view of the justice system, because whether you like it or not, the justice system is a business. You might have issues with that, but it is a business at the end of the day. So I needed to learn about that so that I could inform my future practice. Yeah, that's me. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Edmund. Thank you. Very, very powerful again. And good to hear about your experience and how Tuputoa helped open doors, which, you know, you thought were closed to you before. I'm going to move to Ant. And I know your relationship with, I mean, you are with Auckland Transport now, but your relationship with Tuputoa predates that. Can you share with us why you chose to partner and what impact that has had on your organisation?
Yeah, absolutely. Kia ora everyone, talofa lava, kia ora ana, malo elele, bula, g'day. And also big welcome to the new partners as well. You guys are in for a hell of a ride partnering with Tuputoa, so congratulations and good on you. Yeah, dates back to Air New Zealand. Shout out to any of my ex-colleagues who are listening in from Air New Zealand. So yeah, I've had an association with Tuputoa for 5 or 6 years now, and I think it's been great, because I think through that time Tuputoa's grown, not just in terms of the number of partners, but I think, as Anne alluded to before, the service and the role that Tuputoa plays is so much more than when it started out. So being part of that journey has been fantastic. Look, for me, the why is why Tuputoa is I'm a bit of a data guy, and so I just look at the numbers, and we've got Auckland in our title, and I think for many organisations that are based in Auckland but across the country, you know, Auckland's got 26-27% Māori Pacific population. If you look around your room or your virtual room or your executive sort of area and your boards, does it look and sound like that? And so that's the and the youth as well, that I think the average age of Māori Pacific in the Auckland region's 23, 24, 25, like around that. It's a young population. So again, it sort of becomes why not as opposed to why for me. And then it's okay not to know what those answers are. So then you can ask for help and you can ask for support. And Tuputoa is the organisation to go to. You know, it's like, who are you going to call? Tuputoa. And the support and access to talent, the challenge to thinking that comes from Tuputoa has just been brilliant for us, for me personally, and for the organisations I've worked in as well. The team, Florida, shout out to Florida, the navigators, just do an amazing job. So yeah, I think it's all of that. Sorry, I've sort of rambled a bit, but it's all of that for me. And actually, Florida's whakatauki you talked to before reminded me of a African proverb, actually, and don't ask me to say it in African, but it's actually, I just Googled it before as you were speaking, so I made sure I got it right. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And for me, that's that just sums up the partnership we've had with Tuputoa. Like, I want to go far. I want to make it. Organisations I work in to make a difference, and I think working with Tuputoa has certainly helping us with that.
Thank you very much, and lovely proverb there around going further.
I'm not even sure if it is African actually, but I was told it was. So.
We'll take it anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Rachel, Suncorp has been a partner for many years now, and continues to grow its relationship with Tuputoa in terms of your engagement with Tuputoa. Why have you chosen to partner?
Morena and talofa, everyone. So our relationship with Tuputoa started in 2018, and it was quite an accident in terms of how we became involved. So one of our team members had heard about it through a friend of hers and thought, wow, this would be great for Suncorp. So she approached our head of people and culture at Suncorp, and it just, as like Catherine Dixon says, it was a gift at the perfect time for us. And they both went along to meet with Anne and the team to find out more about the program. And it was just so compelling in so many ways that it was a no-brainer for us. But I think it wasn't until we had our first interns in that summer of 2018, so we had 3 to begin with, we just felt incredibly lucky right from day one. They added so much value into not only their immediate team, but the wider team as well. So that has just continued to grow each year as well. So our following year, we obviously wanted more. We had 4 interns in our next summer, and then the summer just gone, we've had 7. And this year, we've obviously just become a principal sponsor, and we're looking forward to having 10 interns join us next month. So yeah, well, November. So it's been an incredible journey for us. I think the value they've added has far exceeded any of our expectations. So we were really wanting to do something around our cultural diversity. We want our team at Suncorp and our whānau to reflect the communities that we work in and our customers as well. It just seemed to be the right thing to do. But I don't think we expected just how much we would get and gain from this experience. And I think we all feel that we've actually got so much more out of this than what the interns have. And I know that they're just an inspiring group of people. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey for us so far.
Thank you, Rachel. And I think that's very reassuring for our new partners to hear that, to know that, they have partnered with an entity which is, as you described, a gift and a gift that keeps giving. Now we've done the sales pitch for Tuputoa, not that it was necessary. We'll get into some of the tougher questions, if you like. So I want to touch on stereotypes and biases. And Wesley and Edmund, you talked about this a little in your intros. So we have with us a Samoan civil engineer and a Maori lawyer, not exactly roles that are often associated with, shall I say, brown people. So can you two please share your experiences of choosing careers where you are the minority in your fields, and how important your cultural identity has been in terms of your success, both personally and professionally? Wesley, you want to go first?
Yeah, I was thinking on that one a bit. To be honest, I suppose I'll anchor on the comment on like cultural identity, and that for me is probably the biggest driving force. And I'll make a leap in an assumption that cultural identity and that cultural upbringing with its values and I suppose responsibilities that we've grown up with are something that really anchor us in when we come into the workplace. For me, it's coming into the corporate workplace with with the knowledge that my parents, my grandparents migrated to New Zealand, didn't really have a lick of English language, more or less slaved away in factory jobs, like long past the 9-to-5s, and now I have the privilege / the honor to have gone through education, got into higher education, and have now become an engineer, and I am my parents and my grandparents' like dream. And it's that driving force for me that allows me to go into the workplace and have that drive to be better, to make an impression, to be not just a good Samoan engineer, but be a good engineer overall that has a drive that is like second to none kind of thing. So that cultural identity really like pushes me in that aspect. And I suppose along with the help of Tuputoa, like what's the word? Really carrying your cultural identity and bringing your whole self into work. And I've done that at work, and I feel like at work I'm acknowledged, and the full me is valued, and that my workplace can see that value, not just as from a technical point, but from a personal point. And I might have rambled, but there you go. That's my answer.
Thank you, Wesley. Edmund?
I resonated with a lot of what Wesley said. Like I was actually going to do the same thing, and I will, tacking it on to cultural identity, because yeah, it's just everything, like even when I leave work, that's still me. And I think in terms of going into minority roles though, like for me growing up, it wasn't really like I was aiming to be a lawyer. I think, to be honest, I was just trying to finish high school, because in my region, the biggest problem is people actually just don't finish high school. And so finishing, like my mum didn't finish high school, and just like he talked about a factory job, like to this day, she still takes 15-hour shifts. She busted her ass so that I could get a good education and stuff. And so you don't take it for granted. And so like, even when I finished high school, like in my community, that was a big deal. So going to university was an even bigger deal. And then, when every time I go home, they're always like, oh, there's our lawyer, but it's also kind of quite sad, because I've been to even bigger groupings beyond my iwi, and they still say the same thing. There's our lawyer, because there's not many, like there's Paul Majuri and a few others, but there's bugger all lawyers from Hauraki. So yeah, I'm not so sure what the cause of it is, but yeah, sort of, the aspirations are sort of, I suppose, a lot lower, like just getting through high school, I would say. So I think for me, I suppose this whole program made it possible, like for me to step out and try new things. Like it's really weird, because it's just like I assume that maybe, I don't want to go too far, but I assume some people from like past Whangarei and the far north feel the same way. Like I can remember, I don't even think I saw a traffic light until I was 9 years old. Because I grew up in the Wops, and like, it's just a different world for those of us who come from rural or like coastal regions. So like university was not even, I didn't think of it until one day I got sat down by a careers advisor in year 13. You think it's funny too, because I'll go to Hamilton High School, and it's just like, not too far. And it never occurred to me, because of the background that I came from. Like the best things, I can still remember the best things were either the police or the army. That seemed to be where people would funnel you. I can always remember someone saying, I can see you reaching your potential as an army officer. And I was like, oh, I don't really know if that's me, but that's what was prized in the community, right? Being in the army. So I think sort of you just hold on to hope. That's what I always try to give my people. And you just, like you said, you just think about all the sacrifices that have been made, it's just crazy when you look back and you see how many people haven't got a proper, formal education, I suppose, and how that sort of limited everyone's choices. Because even as a lawyer, when I go to court, I'm always reminded, and this is just me anyway, I'm always reminded that when I look at the docket, the defendant could have very easily been me. It was just a few choices, because drugs are rampant, gangs are easy to fall into, and I was just really lucky I had a mum who looked out for me. So I see myself as lucky, because even I had a chat to, like I said, one of those other few Hauraki lawyers, because you can count us on one hand, and he was telling me yesterday too, he said, bro, don't you think we're so lucky, because like, even with like things like, I think we might touch on stuff like racism and over policing and stuff, because heard Ant talk about growing up south. And, you know, like the reality is, even to this day, I still have bad run-ins with the cops. And, you know, it's not great, man. There's so many points where you could go off the rails, and it's like the system is trying to screw you.
Yes, thank
You know?
you. Yeah, and I think that, you know, talking in terms of the system and what you've both shared in terms of sort of, you know, backgrounds and upbringing and what you've come through, and how that actually makes you in so many ways stronger and more resilient and more driven to try and make a difference, because the difference you're making is not just for you, right? It's for your entire communities. So on that note, Rachel and Ant, I mean, do you have thoughts on, you know, when you have these interns coming in with everything that they're bringing with them, what can organizations do to support them and to be places where they can be nourished, where that drive and that determination can be supported, knowing the challenges and the barriers that they've come from?
Yeah, and actually, I just adding to what Wesley and Edmund have said there, I can relate to that as well. So I grew up in Papariki on the Whanganui River, and Omanaya up in the Hokianga. And then we were on a small Pacific island for 3 years as well. And it's that exposure that you don't have to the opportunities out there. So I remember thinking I was going to be a teacher, and my dad was my school principal. Wherever we went, he was my school principal, and my plan was to be a teacher, because that was really the only roles that I knew about, aside from going to the supermarket and just I remember wanting to be on that cash register to punch all those buttons, and couldn't wait to grow up to get a job in the supermarket or drive a truck. So completely understand that you actually need that exposure. When you're in these little remote communities, you don't have that quite the same as what other people do. However, in terms of interns coming into our organisation, I think right from day one, and even prior to that first day, that is so key that they are actually welcomed into your whānau and feel welcomed. And just thinking about 2018 for us, that was really making sure our buddies and leaders were there for the morning tea. Our CEO was there, and the leadership team were all there to have a morning tea with them. And then I think this is another gain that we've got out of this whole experience, is that come 2019, that welcome was lifted, and we had waiata and whakato and then sharing of kai, and it was another level. And then it's just, again, taken another level last year as well, and really welcomed everyone into the foyer, and we even had a guitar. So we're getting bigger and better, and you don't need to be bigger and better, but it's just the way you actually welcome them in, and even down to things like letting them know that they can take a morning tea break, or you don't need to ask to go to the toilet, or to take a lunch break, like, have you had lunch yet? It's all the little things that really make the difference, and that first day is absolutely key. But I think the other thing too is just don't underestimate them. They are just inspiring on so many levels. So having a role within the team that is adding real value, not just perhaps the admin doing things that are sort of like little jobs, give them a real role, because they are so capable. Yeah, that would be my advice. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Ant?
Yeah, I'd agree. Tick, all of that. Probably the only other thing I'd add, a couple of other things is, and we've learned this the hard way, is our interns, they want to be busy as well. So, and this applies to any intern, I think, but actually, and that goes to trust and responsibility. So, you know, load them up with work. I've had that feedback. I've talked to all of our interns, and it's the one thing they've said is, actually, we could have been busier. We could have had more. We work over the Christmas period, which is a bit awkward as well, you know, with gaps, and we're encouraging people to have a good break this year for obvious reasons. So I think there's an onus on leaders to put some good plans and thinking around what that means. You know, what does that work look like? What are those outcomes? What are those responsibilities? Be really clear. Yeah, not just sort of give little the more meaning, you know, sort of menial or smaller tasks. Actually yeah, give the interns some accountability. Yeah, let them, and you'll find, we've found when we've done that, that the results are amazing. Yeah, I think there is a bit of a tendency to maybe not entrust some of the interns as much because they're thinking, oh, they're new, it's their first job, but you know, all of that sort of stuff. But actually, they just want to be busy and they want to get stuck in.
Thank you. So I'm going to stay with you both, Ant and Rachel, and Wesley and Edmund. You know, feel free to jump in. You know, we're seeing growing emphasis on affirmative action, right? So just today, PwC's announced that they'll be hiring more Māori and Pacific talent, and they're looking at new ways of doing this. And one of the things that often comes up, though, when talking about this is this notion that, you know, people should be recruited on merit and not on some diversity criteria or based on some quota, often kind of implying that the two can't actually go hand in hand. What are your views on that?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I can. I've got a few views on that. So I think a quota is the wrong word. I am a fan of having targets. Again, going back to my point around data, right? You need to use the data and the insights from data to help you inform good decisions. So we've been really overt. We've gone out with very clear numbers for females in leadership roles, and we've said we want to double the number of Māori and Pacific that we're hiring, you know, by the 2023. It's, you know, really clear. It gives you something tangible to every organization loves a good target. So I sort of, I don't know what the argument against targets is, to be quite honest. In terms of sort of the merit-based question, look, yes, absolutely best person for the job, but I think what I've learned over time is the best person applying for the job. And so I think it all comes back to your recruitment. You know, is the job accessible? Is the ad written in the right way? Are you targeting? What are your channels you're using? Are you just, is it actually fair and open? Are you getting the best people applying? And I think for a lot of organizations, they look hard at that. They probably aren't. So yeah, and so then I think you've also got to challenge traditional notions of what merit means, and how much actually, what is merit, and how much value do you place on culture and growth and diversity of thought and you know, all the other things that people bring into organizations, not just grade point averages or you know, those sorts of things. So yeah, to me it's those two things. It's really thinking about what, you know, your hiring practices and your definition of merit, or what good looks like. And I think if you rethink all of those through a very different lens, you will get better outcomes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, gosh, that's a hard one to follow. We are very much the same. So I know for the last quite a few years now, the focus has been on that gender equality in leadership roles, and we're very close to that 50-50 gender equality on our senior leadership team, which is great. And I know the focus is now turning to more about how is our organisation reflecting the community that we work in and reflecting our customers as well. That diversity of thought is really key for us. So looking at how we measure that going forward, that's another thing. But yeah, it's a journey that we're on. But in terms of hiring by merit, you just think, surely it's a no-brainer, isn't it, really? Yeah, and you just wonder how can we achieve that? That's something we should be doing already. Yeah. And not hiring someone like yourself. Just imagine a team of me, God.
Yes, I think you know, we all want to hire the best person for the job, and as Anne said, you know, but what if those people aren't actually applying for the job? But also I think, you know, when we do that without actually challenging the definition of merit, we run the risk of evaluating the person on outdated criteria or through a narrow lens. And we often make recruitment decisions based on what's worked in the past, when actually our world's changed quite a lot. And as you said, Rachel, you know, and mentioned earlier as well, you know, do our organizations actually reflect the diversity of our communities, of our society at the moment? I want to talk about cultural competency. You know, we're seeing growing awareness of the need for cultural competency. And actually, I was blown away last week by the efforts demonstrated by so many organizations throughout the country in marking Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori. So really interested to understand, for all four of you actually, how did your organizations mark this week? And how do you keep that momentum going? Wesley, do you want to share? You were talking about how Arab's actually a very diverse and inclusive organization. How did you mark Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori?
I suppose in the past, when we are in the office, you know, bring in the speaker and they speak about Te Ao Māori, and it's very informative, and we've, I suppose, shifted away from doing these big 1 week or 1 day events, and at the moment there's a shift to trying to do the little things and just chip away in that toolbox, which I much rather prefer. Like when I find that when you try and change someone, be like here's a bunch of words, go learn them kind of thing, it's a bit too drastic. And in my opinion, if it comes to integrating Māoridom into the workplace, it's as small as, you know, if we have a bunch of contracts that are in the Waikato region or in the Tauranga region, then or heck, even in Auckland, then we start saying Waitemata, Tauranga, Taupo, like pronouncing those things first, and just slowly but surely it just increases. And so in our workplace, I think it's every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, there's a new kind of like lesson that's just a small little portion of like a tutoring thing on, here's a webinar thing, these are the names of places, and we've got, who is it, Billy Joe Hohepa, I'm butchering the name because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but yes, and she helps our office and like calls in every now and then to give us these little nuggets every now and then. So that's what I'd say for our office.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share their experience?
I can go. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll share. So I'll share about the Crown, because obviously the uni is very straightforward. The Kingitanga owns the land. They don't, they'll just hike the prices until they get them to do what they want. So at the Crown, which was quite interesting. So when I first got there, it was a very different Crown, but when I left, there were a few of us who helped to advocate for culture change. So every week now, the Crown has compulsory te reo lessons. They go to an annual noho marae. They get cultural competency training as part of being Crown prosecutors. The next big thing that will be coming through the Crown is having a requirement of cultural competence in order to progress to bigger trials and to obviously get paid more money. So they're looking at making that a requirement. So that's the Solicitor General Una Iagos. So I think it's gotten a lot better. I think I saw last they changed all of their job title names too. So I think, you know, maybe like Wesley's saying, if you sort of just pick one thing and then do a bit at a time, that's going to add up over time. So maybe, you know, it's changing titles, or, you know, starting, you know, compulsory te reo lessons, or, you know, even learning about, it surprises me still how much people don't know about the history of the areas that their buildings are in. You know, we're sort of getting history into schools. I say let's get history into businesses, because I found it quite interesting. I was always happy to do Whai Kōrero for Pōwhiri and that for the Crown, but the thing that surprised me is they didn't even know who the mana whenua was, where their building was, which was quite surprising. And I like what Ant said about hiring practices and merit. So I'll just comment on that. And so hiring practices are real important, because I can still remember my tupu tour interview. And the reason I bring it up was because it's very different. Because if I look away like this, I'm not necessarily being rude just because I won't look you in the eyes. It's a cultural thing. So I think who you also get to do your hiring matters, because, you know, I see it all the time in court as well. People won't look at the judge in the eyes, and, you know, some judges go, you know, look at me when I'm talking to you, but it's just the cultures are clashing. It's really rude to stare someone out in the eyes. And in terms of merit, I always find this quite interesting, because, and it's hard to account for, but I would always go for character. And the reason why is because you might have the smartest person who does the dumbest shit, like take money or wreck your business reputation. You know, look at Russell McVeigh. And the interesting thing about Russell McVeigh is, following what happened there, obviously, because it was sexually inappropriate, law firms are still asking for pictures for when people apply for jobs, even of female applicants. Not sure they understand how that looks, because it kind of looks a bit dodgy and creepy. And the other thing about merit is you have to be careful with what I call shooting star syndrome. And I always remember because I don't know if this has happened for other people, but in high school, they ranked us. So it was like 10P through 10J or something like that. And I was an L, which, you know, they used to call us losers because we're down the bottom. But the real funny thing is, all the kids in the top class, they sort of dropped out of uni, or they, you know, got their law degree, but never became lawyers because they sort of have always had things handed to them. So just because someone's got a great transcript, you know, you got to look at the reality that that's just a moment in time, and it doesn't actually mean very much. Because like I think even, you know, people who got ducks in that, like, I want to try and say it respectfully, but they haven't really done very much, you know. So they kind of, like a shooting star, they petered out. So sort of like staying in it for the long game is most important. You want to look for someone who's maybe not got, like, not necessarily, of course you want them to know stuff, but if they haven't got the best grades, you should be more interested in how their work ethic is, you know, because they need to be teachable. Because if they're just smart and think they know everything, you're just going to be annoyed all summer. So,
Edmund, with something you talked about, you mentioned earlier, you know, with the teaching bit, but about how you were helping your colleagues understand more, say, about Te Ao Māori, right? And I think what we're seeing with growing cultural awareness is great, but we also, it can be taxing, you know, for the few people of colour in organisations, when you often get asked to lead a pōwhiri or a waiata or do a karakia or explain, you know, cultural nuance to people. So I'm really interested in your experiences of this, Wesley and Edmund. Do you have any advice for organisations who, you know, I'd like to think are generally well-meaning and want to learn and also want to sort of, you know, have the opportunity to give you a platform, but perhaps not fully aware of the burden that places on you?
Yeah, I can share that. I think, so I'm quite comfortable doing it because of the way that I was raised, which is a blessing. Like, I didn't even know that many people didn't grow up at home. So I'm the 23rd generation and we all still live on the same land. From our ancestor who's atop the wharenui. So I, in some senses, I haven't been displaced, which is obviously not the reality for many people. So I think the first thing is sort of, you have to make sure that they're okay with it and that they want to do it. So I don't know how to approach this conversation, but it would have to be some form of, if you can do this, and if you want to do this, but it's okay if you tell us no, you know, like some form of that. Could even, you know, it doesn't have to be a conversation you have to have publicly because it might seem like pressure. But yeah, the other thing I'd say is, if somebody does provide cultural knowledge that you ask for, then I think you should pay them. And I've come to this realization because I gave, in both my internship and in my last role, I gave so much mātauranga away for free. And I came to the realization, actually, the guy who's doing te reo lessons is getting paid. And, you know, it's kind of like, it's not accounted for in my salary. So I think maybe some kind of recognition for cultural knowledge should be given. Yeah, does that make sense? Sort of. Yeah,
seeing a bit of nodding going on. Wesley, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll agree completely with what Edmund said and just add one small tiny piece. And this comes to cultural competency, so train up essentially, because, you know, Māori and Pasifika people, they a few of us are darker skinned, and I'd just put it out there to, one, get to know what culture the person is, like, or the group. Are they Māori? Are they Samoan? Are they Tongan? Because I've run into situations where it's almost like, do you think I'm Māori? Because it's like, can you do the waiata? Can you do the karakia? And it's all well-meaning, so the intent is always fine. But yeah, just as a little tack on to everything Edmund said, check if they're Māori first, check if they're Samoan first, and that goes a long way, because then if they can speak to it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think assumptions are very interesting. I myself grew up in Fiji, and very different upbringing to sort of someone from India. But if we ever went to an Indian restaurant, when we order food, I have to tell them mild, child mild, not Indian mild, because otherwise the assumption is, you look Indian, so you must want really, really spicy food. And I can't handle it. So, I think there's one thing about getting to know people better and just understanding what background they come from, but also understanding that even within groups, we are all different and we are all unique. One of the things that I wanted to cover also is, this week, of course, is Mental Health Awareness Week. And related to what we were talking about earlier is the growing angst we are seeing amongst people, and those of us in Auckland have been in lockdown for the longest period in our history. And, we know that our Māori and Pacific communities in particular are disproportionately impacted as a result of COVID-19. So Ant and Rachel, really interested in your thoughts, and maybe Ant, I'll come to you first. What are you seeing in your organization with your teams? And do you have any suggestions of how we can support people through this time?
It's a big question. I'm really proud of the work we're doing with just mental health in general. I like shout out to the team. It's become probably the number one issue for us, and I know a lot of organisations are taking it way more seriously and building really good programs around that. With a whole range of, and I'm happy to talk to you offline of what we're doing. Is probably another session to talk about that. But look, there's no doubt there's this. Actually, my old boss, I'm not sure if he's on from Westpac, Mark, wrote an article. I read it this morning actually about the generational impact of COVID on not just like on the economy, but on well-being and people's mental health. It was quite a interesting way to think about it. And then you look at the rise in number of people on the benefit, which I think some new stats have come out at that, yet unemployment is not that high. And you match that with stories of young people leaving school and employment and tertiary education to go and work. I can't help but think that there's something going on, there. We've got this longer term impact on people's. It's a well-being issue, I think, because well-being comes from people's stability, from having a good job, from employment, from having a healthy home and life environment. It's not green smoothies and yoga classes. So I think organisations have to keep taking it really, really seriously and investing in it. I think we've got social responsibility to invest in programs like internships, like partnering with Tupatoa, like making sure that we're creating good and sustainable employment opportunities. And then once people join your organisation, what are you doing then? What are you doing about mental health? We've partnered with John Kirwan and Mentor recently, which has been absolutely awesome. In terms of providing tools and techniques and what have you. I think the challenge, which I don't have the answer for, is what are the cultural nuances of that? And I think that's a conversation we are starting to have with our different connect groups within the organisation, our Māori group, Pacifica group, all our diversity, our women's network. We need to talk, I think, about what wellbeing means through a cultural lens, a bit more and nuance your response to that. I don't have the answer to that, but I think that's an important topic as well.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, wellbeing has been a key focus of Suncorp for 18 months. It's been front of mind, so for our people, but for our customers and our communities as well. So I know our CEO sees it as being a responsibility of corporates that can to support the communities that they work in. So 3 weeks ago, we donated 150,000 to communities in South Auckland and Northland to help with food. So the Cause Collective and Fair Food and Salvation Army, but also Shine, our community partner, to help with families who are potentially experiencing domestic violence during these times as well. So it's very broad, very broad. In terms of our customers, there are obviously hardship grants, and our employees, it was all perfect timing, had just undergone customers experiencing vulnerability training in March or February, March last year. So, and they've experienced obviously a higher degree of stress and calls from customers as well. So that's how we've responded to customers. For our people as well, we've got great access to support services like EAP. We've got through our Astron Life brand, all employees have access to the Mental Health Navigator, which is access to specialists for psychology and everything there, just accessible, free of charge for employees. And yeah, in the last 2 weeks, we've all had been told to take 2 hours off during the workday and switch off completely. So, and it's ongoing, obviously, this week with Mental Health Awareness Week, and capturing those internal stories from our people that are happy to share about their own experience in terms of mental health. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. Some great suggestions there from you both, and I think, and the point around the cultural context of well-being is a really important one. We are fast running out of time, so time for one last question. Anne talked earlier about how diverse teams are more creative, more innovative, resilient, more productive, and profitable. But diversity without inclusion, as we know, is meaningless. Diversity delivers when people feel valued, when they feel empowered to contribute, when they feel they belong. And so for the last question today, what I'd like to ask each of you to do is, if you can share with us, one tip that you recommend to our participants today that can help in building inclusion and belonging. And maybe, Ant, I'll start with you.
Okay. I've got a little story I was actually reluctant to share, but it goes back to your point, Edmund. Early on in my career, I made that mistake. We just hired a young guy. I'd assumed he was Māori. I asked him to do a bit of a welcome to a new Māori that we'd just employed. And then just as we're sort of kicking off, he said to me, well, you do realise I'm from I'm Cook Island Māori. I don't really know what to do. It was all a bit embarrassing, but that was a massive lesson for me, right? Like, I was early 20s, is to not get to know people. It's just such a no-brainer. Ask the questions, care. I think, show genuine care about getting to know people. Don't make it superficial. It's really important. And then you don't stereotype, which is what I did. You don't stereotype. We've got some. I won't share too much detail, but we've had interns and grads who are living in a garage with 3 kids under 5 with their sister in a house of 15 in Papatotoi. And another intern is living in a mansion in Meadowbank in Auckland here. So and each of them have their own challenges, very different challenges. So don't assume. Get to know people, where they come from, where they're living, what their background is, what their family life is, and you spend an hour and a bit doing that, it will make all the difference. So that would be my one little tip.
Thank you, Ant. Edmund?
Just second what Ant said, like, man, you spoke to me right there. Like, a lot of people don't know there was a point my family and I lived in a garage, like, for real, so it's actually probably more common than we realized, and wasn't a lot of room there for parking cars, so sort of park the cars outside. But I think the tip that I would give is do what my team at Corrections did. So I come in and they sort of went around, we all did pepeha, everybody. So I found out where everyone was from, and then I went last. And then from there, it didn't stop. So every week, my whole team would go with me to cultural competency training, and we would do te reo lessons. And the best thing I I can't remember his name, but corrections will know who he is. He used to come into national office and he would sit with everyone and go, I think you're about here. So then later on, everyone would also have individual sessions, which was quite special. And I felt like for me, he helped to communicate my experience to them as well, which I found really helpful. You know, like obviously things won't get perfect straight away, but it just showed, like Ant said, that they were genuine, because I knew they were busy people. But, you know, there was this one block of time once a week and they'd be like, cool, let's go. We've got our cultural competency and we'll sit as a team. We've got this person coming in and, you know, let's have a chat for an hour and learn some stuff. So I thought that was pretty special, you know. Short, like the only other thing is you've just got to think about not just recruitment at our level, but the higher levels. Because if I look up, like if I go into an organization, I look up and I go, everybody at the top is Pākehā Pālangi. Says a lot about the culture, and it doesn't give me any confidence that if I stick around, I'll get there. You know, so I need to see somebody there who I can go, oh, okay, they've done it. Maybe I could one day. It's probably the only other, two things. Sorry, two things, but yeah.
That's great, thank you. And very true around, you know, diversity attracts diversity. Rachel.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is be interested and get involved. So Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori the other week was the biggest week that we've had at Suncorp, and I'm not sure if it's because we're all on lockdown, but it was fantastic for wellbeing as well. So we kicked off the week with our CEO doing his own pepeha. So our CEO is Irish, come Kiwi, and he kicked it off at the beginning of the week, giving his pepeha a go. And it just spiraled through the whole week. So our Tikanga group, we've got a bit of a champion in the group, Brian. He pretty much was on a hotline, I think, all week, asking for help for pepeha. So every day during the week, we had a waiata by Brian and his whānau locked in their lounge at home. And the pepehas just being added to our Yammer pages all day, every day was just incredible. And the support behind it as well, I think was contagious is what I'm thinking. Showing that support, encouraging others to do it and being brave to give it a go. And I think just having that real interest in it, and I see that in my kids as well. I've got a strong interest in culture. My father did. My kids just absolutely love kapa haka at their schools and heavily involved and brave enough to lead the haka. And I'm just so proud that that has happened. And I think it must be just seeing how interested people are in culture can extend it far further and create that inclusive culture as well.
Thank you, Rachel. Wesley, you've got the last word.
Cool. Oh, yes. One word, well, and then I'll add on to it. I'm a big fan of empathy. So it ties on to a lot what everyone else has said. You know, getting to know someone else, taking a walk in their life, essentially, like standing in their shoes, essentially, just really getting to know someone. But then as much as I ask the partners to get to know the interns, I'd also like them to reflect on themselves. So to tack onto the empathy is like, don't forget like your why. Your everyone is a lot further in their careers, and something that really helped me in understanding who I want to be as an engineer was seeing the passion and the drive in my seniors, like, and why they enjoy the thing that they do, why they are passionate about engineering or being a lawyer. And that for me is like a big thing, like going into a meeting and seeing that passion from my seniors is massive. So it's something that sometimes, like, anytime you see seniors, they're always just stressed out because they've got some project that they're doing, but making it known to the junior levels of what is your why, what drives you, why do you enjoy what you do, is a big thing, because where that senior is now is where I'm going to be. And if I look up and see, oh man, that guy's miserable, that person's miserable, they're not passionate about what they do, I'm like, oh my gosh, is that my future? So yes, knowing your why, reaching inside yourself and finding, oh yeah, why am I passionate about what I do? And that's what I'd say.
Thank you so much to our panel for sharing your experiences and insights so generously. We greatly appreciate it. And if we were in a room together, we would do a virtual round of applause for our panel at this point, but we're not. So that's all right. We still acknowledge you all and everything that you've done. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but as you all know, diversity and inclusion cannot be a one-off exercise. And this is where Tuputoa can support you in so many ways. As Florida said right at the start, we need all of us to be working together to grow Māori and Pacific leaders for a greater Aotearoa. We need all of us to be working together to build a more productive, inclusive and sustainable Aotearoa. And on that note, I will sign off here and hand back to Anne. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Zina. Thank you, Ants. Thank you, Wesley. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, Edmund. I don't know about everybody else in the room today, but I don't know if you were touched or moved by the panel today, then all I can say is you are now experiencing what we call the mana and the magic of Tuputoa. So welcome, welcome. Now moving on to the announcement, the final piece of today's presentation. So another group of amazing new partners that have joined our waka. AbleTech, Adidas, AIA Insurance, Endo Insurance, AWS, Brookfield Lawyers, BOC, Calibre, Chorus, Kogo, Dempsey Wood, Denton's Kensington Swan, GSK, Holmes Consulting, Humankind, Kainga Order, Corn Ferry, Leading Edge, Merck Sharp and Dome, MYOB, Niche Recruitment, NZME, Pacific Media Network, Online Republic, Pacific Corporation Foundation, Pharmac, Ridges Hotel Wellington, Vista Group, Siemens Healthineers, Solari Architects, Te Pūtahitanga o Te Waipounamu, Tetra Tech Kofi, Weta Workshop, Tata Consultancy Services, Old House, EQ3 Consulting, Run, Rotonga Tai Ohi MSD Youth Service, Māori Education Trust, and finally Education. Wow, can you believe? With our new partners and existing partners, you can see that our partner logo page is looking very, very busy. That's a total of 163 partners in our waka so far. 51 of these partners are new partners. So yeah, welcome, welcome. All of this translates to 163 partners, which will give us 350 plus opportunities across the motu this year. So an amazing growth for Tuputoa. And sitting behind that growth, I just want to acknowledge the team. And as you all know, it's my job to role model the model. We are growing an amazing team of emerging leaders. So when I joined Tuputoa 4 years ago, I think the team was 3. We're now at 21. We've gone to market for our first 2 directors. So we are growing the team in order to support the growth in our partners as well. So thank you to the team. I'm now going to hand back to Florida, I believe, who is going to introduce our final speaker for the day.
Kia ora, malo abito, and thank you team. We're nearly there. We're nearly at the end of our program. So just to conclude our new partner welcome for this morning, I would like to introduce Tina Wilson, one of our co-chairs, to provide some final words for this morning. Tina Wilson is currently based in Taiwan as the director of the New Zealand Trade Development Centre for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, and just recently appointed to the Asia New Zealand Foundation Board. Previously, Tina was director of Māori Business at NZTE, responsible for internationalizing Māori businesses and sourcing investment opportunities for Māori entities. She currently sits on the council of Massey University and is the chair of Te Iwi o Ngāti Tiko Rehe Trust. Tina has worked within the Māori sector for the last 25 years across investment, business strategy, financial management, training, and economic development. She has extensive governance in both Māori and non-Māori organizations as well. What an impressive list. That was definitely a mouthful as well. So I would like to pass the floor over to Tina Wilson to give us our final words today. Māloa pito, Tina.
O, tēnā rā koutou e te whānau, mihi kano ki a tātou e te rānei. E te minenga ngā mihi ki a koutou i tai ki roto i te ahurei o tēnei, i te atanei, mai Taiwana, ka mihi au ki a koutou, ki a kunui, ki a kurahi, ki ngā mātā waka, Waikato Tainui, Parihauraki, tēnā koutou katoa kei konei i te atanei. Ki a koutou i a kurangatira, kia Wesley, kia Edmund, koutou mā, ko koutou moa pōpō, nei rā te mihi. Ko wai tēnei tu atu nei, ko Ngāti Tūkore, rau ko maupoko rangitāne ki te waru, rāro ātiawa, nai tahu mihi atu kia koutou kia koutou katoa. Kia ora everybody. Oh wow, what an inspiring morning we've had this morning. It has been wonderful to sit here and listen to all of the fantastic kōrero that we have had. I'm truly inspired by not only the way that we started our journey today with whakatau and tēnā koutou Ngāti Whātua who have guided us on this journey this morning, but it's come through from our MCs, tēnā kōrua, through our CE, and always inspiring, and of course our phenomenal panelists who have joined us this morning. We are extremely grateful to you all. And Zaina, thanks so much, and a big mihi to you for your recent appointment as well to the Asia Foundation. It's fantastic to sit alongside Tupe, Solomon, Tanoa, and Paul Te Koa Pararo Morgan. You know, the boards are changing, the representation's changing, and this is a great way to start our journey. It's so great to see you all here today, the many partners. We couldn't do this without you, and Anne spoke right at the beginning around partnership. So I was thinking, how do I frame this summary up for you all here? I think we're talking to all of the converted on this kōrero as well. So I kept coming back to my W's actually. So the first W was waka. You know, it's our united fleet of tupatoa entities. We have heard by many of our speakers from the kupu of our whakatau through the rest of it, we're all on this waka together. And it's not just one waka, we've got our own differences, our own uniquenesses, but we're here to support a common cause. My next W was whanaungatanga, more importantly. And said in her address, our partners mean more than just a corporate responsibility to a response and a problem. We spoke of our people and how we bring them on the journey. One of our examples at NZTE is that everyone who joins NZTE goes on a 2-day noho marae with us. So everyone is on the journey together, creating pathways and opportunities to create cultural change and unity together. So through our beautiful Māori platform, we can actually discover and uplift other cultures that sit across the global workforce. Cultural change and behaviour is probably one of the biggest things that we're all trying to overcome. In doing this collectively together, we're all here to walk alongside you. Weto was my next W, to extinguish. And so I heard from our beautiful rangatira on our panel today, racism, institutional racism. We have to extinguish these, but it takes time, it takes change, but it takes courage as well. And know that you're not alone in this. And so sharing our experiences, sharing the challenges, that's the stuff that we can try and be stronger and enforce together. Providing experiences while growing and developing, I really love that. You know, the typical interns that you see through your summer internship programs or whatever the program timing is may not be the ones that you end up with, but note that you are actually creating a pathway and a platform for them to help them land where they should land based on their beautiful skill sets. Shooting star syndrome, I love that so much, you know, the pressure versus the opportunity of what that means. The new corporate stereotypes that sit within that. I think another weto is that not all our interns are the same and come from the same cultural competency backgrounds as well. So we heard about who's Māori, who's not Māori, be it Cook Island or be from Wānuiakiwa, but it's actually bigger than that, you know, so whakamā is real. And so we all come in different shades of brown, and I definitely come from one of the lighter shades of brown. So just note that we have to help create change what these stereotypes look like for us as Pasifika people, as Māori people. And like I said, embarrassment is real for our tauira, for our rangatahi, for our interns. It's also really real for our partners and our people in our workplaces. So we ask everyone to walk with the light of aroha on their side. And again, drawing on Ant and Wes's comments. But we are here to help. So reach out and, you know, a problem shared is something you can overcome. Whittle, hiring by merit. Whittle is the challenge. Hiring by merit was a big point that was raised today. That's actually interesting because it brings me back to Wesley's point. He would not have got in the door if it was based on the paper merit. And I loved, I think, was it Zaina or Rachel said that you actually changed the way that we look at people and we interview. And Edmund pointed out, we changed the way who sits on our panels. You can be what you can see. So you actually have to create an opportunity to actually really uncover the gems and see what's lying beneath these diamonds. They might be a little rough on the outside, but a bit of polishing, and you will see some amazing characteristics and qualities come to fruition. I also want to tautoko what Edmund said. You know, you get asked to do the pōwhiri, you get asked to do the cultural competencies because you can. I want to remind everybody, this is a skill set. It's a skill set that people have dedicated a huge amount of energy, their life's work and time towards. Not for the qualification, it's a bigger investment than that. It's for the mana and upholding our paipai and our marae. So please acknowledge and be mindful of what that means for them. We don't seem to remunerate, and how could you put a price on that? But there's a discussion to be had. These skill sets don't come from just anybody and they don't come out of a book. My number 6 was whiti-whiti or whiri-whiri, which I couldn't quite get my words for. 50-50 was really what I was trying to say. And spoke to representation of women in the organisations. So that's been a big consideration. We have wider diversity of ethnicities on our boards, another consideration now, so it's great to see. And I mentioned Zaina on her board alongside Tupe and Paul. We are now seeing many boards move towards 50-50 representation with tangata whenua. We know what our workforce demography is going to look like in the near future. This is a big challenge and it might make us feel uncomfortable, but I think I'm talking to the converted, to those that actually want to get on with this journey. Just putting it out there to note that these are the challenges that are coming our way around creating real diverse organisations in Aotearoa New Zealand's corporate workforce. My last one is why. My last W is why. My why. I'm a mama of 4 and a whaia to many. And so I've got 4 children who are steaming towards this corporate workforce, and it's up to us to create opportunities for all of them. And like I said, I'm a whaia. I'm a different kind of mother to many others that walk alongside my tamariki. We have to create change for all of them, their Pacific cousins, their Māori cousins from all around the motu. And it will be a greater opportunity for Te Whetoa, it'll be a greater opportunity for your organisations, and it'll be the best opportunity for Aotearoa New Zealand. So in closing, my whakatauki to leave you with is whaia te pai tawhiti, ko te pai tata. Whaia te pai tawhiti, ko te pai tata whakamaua kia tina. Celebrate where we have come, but there is far more to reach out and try and achieve in the future. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora, kia koe e te whaetina, mo kōrero tautoko I tēnei kaupapa I te rānei. Kia tātou katoa hurinoa, tēnei te mihi kia koutou hakapiri, nei ki tō tātou huhuinga I te ata nei. Just a warm thank you to everyone that has joined us this morning. We have come to an end for our virtual new partner welcome. We just want to thank you all once, twice, 3 times, and we look forward to having meetings, catch-ups in the next couple of months. Fingers crossed that it's in face-to-face. But just to whakakapi our kaupapa this morning, we're going to hand it over to one of my colleagues, Ihipera, to do our karakia.
Kia ora tala. Tēnā tātou e te whānau. Hea tāhua ngā kōrero I puta mai I te rānei, te hōhonu hoki, nō reira, ka rere ngā mihi ki ngā kai kōrero, o te rā, o tira kia koutou kua hui mai nei, I mua I o tō tātou wehenga, me noi tātou. tukua te mauri tū, tukua te mauri oho, tukua te mauri tapu o ēnei wānanga, whakairi nuku, whakairirangi, whakairi ki ngā pātū o tāne whakapiripiri e tū nei. Kia wā te anō a tamaroto, kia wā te anō a hine roto, kia puta anō ki te whaiao, ki te ao marama. Tihei, mauri ora.
Go well, everyone. Ka kite.
Ka kite.
Stay safe and well. Thank you for joining.